to part one to this little video series I'm doing earlier today when I was on my first little ride, and now I am making a part two to that to expand on it here. If you haven't seen part one, go ahead and check that out. You can find it in some of my other videos, and maybe later on I'll try to add a link to it somewhere. But for now, I'm doing this live, so just keep that in mind. And the route that I'm driving might interrupt the stream just a little bit. Try to avoid the worst interruptions if possible. So, like I said, I did a part one to this video maybe a little over 2 hours ago, something like that, a couple hours ago this morning. And right away, I got a comment from Randy Barber, who is a car dealer himself. He knows the business, probably knows the business a hell of a lot more than I do. I'm trying to remember what state he's in. I want to say he's in Tennessee, but I might be wrong about that. He's in one of those types of places, you know, a deep south state, as some people would call it, especially if you're a guy like me. I'm originally from Maine, but live in Virginia now. But he said one of the things I mentioned in my video is that some states have a warranty required from a dealer. And he wanted some clarification on that because he had never heard of such a thing, which is understandable. You know, he's been operating where he's at for many years and might not have had to you know, work with the state with that kind of rule. And I don't know what all states require warranties. I'm told, I'm not going to try and say which ones do or which ones don't, because I don't know offhand and I don't know the specifics of it. The one that I do know requires a warranty is the state of Maine. But it's not like a warranty like when you go and you buy a brand new car and it's like a 5-year powertrain warranty or whatever it is. It's like a lighter version of a warranty. For one thing, that warranty like you get from a dealer, like the state mandated warranty, does not last that long. I was always under the impression that it's 3 months in the state of Maine, but after doing some research, I'm not really clear on how long that's supposed to be. It doesn't really say exactly. It looks like 30 days, in a couple of places it mentions 30 days as a number, but then it says even then that you can still go after the people, so I'm not sure. But the people that I know up in Maine, they use 3 months as their number to be safe. And the warranty in Maine, as it's described, covers things that are part of your state inspection. So essentially, the state of Maine requires that brakes, and when they say brakes, they include all the gears in the transmission. So park, reverse, and all forward gears, they include that under brakes, which is really weird to me, but that's the way that it's written. Is that your transmission is part of your braking system. So they have to warranty that. And then they have your lights, obviously, your seat belts, your airbags if equipped, and you know, a few other things. Catalytic converters, those are included in that warranty situation. And the way that it works is, from what I'm reading, it doesn't look like if a dealer violates that, the state's going to roll in and say, oh, we're taking your dealer's license, especially not if they haven't done it a lot. And I don't really know how easy or difficult it is to lose your dealer's license in Maine, being somebody that doesn't possess one. So, but what can happen is the person that buys a car from you can take you to civil court on the matter and cite those statutes to make you pay for the damages to them personally, and it says that explicitly in the state statute. So that means, if you had a problem, like if you bought a car from a dealer and in the first week you had it, transmission just completely cuts out, like it's completely dead, won't move, won't do anything, and you go to the dealer and you say, hey, I need my car fixed, I just bought this less than a week ago, I bought this on Monday, here it is Thursday, and the transmission went to hell. And the dealer says, well, you bought it, you drove it off the lot, it's yours now, we're not going to cover it. And then you have to pay out of pocket for it. You can take the dealer to court to pay for all those costs that you had to pay, including your rental car during the time that your car is being fixed. Is this a perfect system? Is this a guarantee for the consumer? Absolutely not. Because for one thing, the dealer always has a card in his pocket to say, well, it came from misuse, it came from abuse. And proving that one way or another is always going to be questionable in court. It'll be very questionable for the dealer to prove that you did misuse it, because they're not riding with you everywhere in the car, they ain't got a video camera in your car. And it's also questionable for you as a consumer to say, no, I didn't mistreat this car. If the dealer can somehow prove that you mistreated the car, then you'll have to find some way to say that you didn't. And so in both sides of it, I think it would be equally difficult. But the dealer has to prove you mistreated it first. So, it is on your side a little bit. That's pretty much one of the only caveats to the dealer being able to reject your warranty under the state's law there. And the other thing is, if it's not an inspectable item, and the engine, as it turns out, is not part of it, which is really weird. Also, like, why not include the engine? I mean, if this is supposed to be like a consumer protection thing, but it's really not meant to be that. The state made that law because they knew that dealerships could possibly have some type of sway over an inspector, especially if you're a dealership that has an inspection station on site. Then it's conceivable to me, and obviously it was conceivable to the legislature when they made these laws, that a dealership where they have so many cars that would come through there and they would do so much business with whoever's inspecting the car, the inspector might cut some corners and let the dealership get away with something. And then what happens is the state is worried that unsafe vehicles will be traveling the roads. And if that happens, then obviously that's not good for anybody, the consumer, nor the other people that have to drive on the same roads as that person that bought the car, thinking that they were getting a good car from a dealership, because they err on the side of the average person isn't going to know if their car is safe. That's why they have state inspections. So that's the way that law works in Maine. And me and Randy were kind of talking about it in the comments. It's a tough thing. The way that I kind of look at it is, if you're a dealer and you're in a state that requires a warranty, the thing you need to do first and foremost is understand what that warranty requires. Exactly, black and white, what you have to do. Then you need to do, then everybody should do, is take care of your customers. Personally, I find it a little unethical for a guy to be like, well, I'm just going to do the bare minimum that the state requires for me to operate this business and make money. People, when they come to you buying a car, they're coming and putting that lifeline. A car, for a lot of people, especially in a rural place like Maine or any place, is a huge perk. People spend a huge amount of their resources buying a car, especially a person that buys a used car. They're spending a very, very large amount of their resources buying that car. They need to depend on it for them to, you know, do everything in their life. You know, whether it be going back and forth to work, going to the grocery store, picking up their kids, whatever. That thing is important to them. That is an asset to their life. So to me, it's unethical for somebody to knowingly go and like tell you this is a good car, I'm a good dealer, and then they sell you a piece of crap. That's just me. And if it were me as a dealer, I would do my best within reason to take care of the person. But every situation's different. You can't go broke doing it either, and I understand that side of it too. You know, that person, you know, that sale is a leverage for you to make a profit and for you to make a living, and that's why you can exist as a car dealer. And I don't know how many general consumers see things that way, but that's the way that it works. That's the way that we keep this world working and turning. I mean, everywhere you go, everywhere you spend money, for the most part, people are making a profit off of it. They're getting some type of benefit, just like you are. That's the way it happens. So, going on from that, I wanted to make this part of the video, this part of my car dealership ecosystem little series here, directed towards, you know, the elephant in the room, which is CarMax, and we've got a couple other big nationwide used car dealers that are not franchised, meaning they don't sell new cars, they sell used cars, but they're going nationwide. So you got CarMax, and now we've got a company called Carvana. I think that they do sell new cars at Carvana, but I haven't looked into it enough. But anyway, they're a nationwide dealer, and these companies, there's a couple other ones. I think Drive Time, they're pretty big. These guys are like in a league of their own, and if you are buying a new car, there's something to be said to buy it from a corporate entity like that. Yeah, I've never bought a car from CarMax, but I do understand their business model and how it works. And, you know, a corporate entity is all about increasing their stock price and mitigating their risk. So, as a corporation, CarMax is not going to sell a car to the general public that really has any risk involved to their company. That means if you go to CarMax and you bought a car from them, they're not gonna let you get screwed, because it's just not worth it. You're such a small piece of their pie that they'll put you in a different car. They don't give a shit. And then they'll take the car that you had and throw it over an auction. And what's crazy about CarMax, I don't think really any other dealership does this that I know of. They have their own auction. They control the market so heavily, it's crazy. They have their own auction where they're selling to smaller dealers, and basically they're taking the cars that they don't want to have anything to do with, this, you know, stuff that's too old or has too many problems, or they don't think they can make enough money on. They'll take those cars and run them across their auction instead. So like all that stuff that gets traded in. And I don't know. I mean, I guess CarMax must buy from other auctions to build up their inventory, I would think. Whether they buy dealer stock from like franchise dealers, so new car dealers, they get stuff traded in. If they buy stock off of them, I guess they must, and they must buy other stuff. So yeah, that's one big part of it. The cool thing about a CarMax auction is, as a dealer, if you are going to them to buy, there is a good chance that the car ain't gonna be that horrible. I mean, yeah, of course, they get crap, but there is also a lot of stuff that comes through there that ain't that bad. Because it's stuff that people traded in because they wanted to move up, but it was just a little too old for CarMax or whatever. So that's very interesting to me. I know guys that only buy from CarMax auctions or buy a lot from CarMax auctions. Maybe they don't only buy from CarMax. and they do pretty good for themselves that way. So yeah, that's one interesting thing. So now in this part, now that I've covered that little bit that I didn't get to in the other video, I also want to talk about exactly what you should do buying a car. So the first thing you need to do if you're looking at buying a car, and this is a significant investment for you, we're talking about a car that is going to be a significant portion of your income or savings or both, the things you got to sit down and think about. So number one, you need to qualify yourself as a buyer. Don't let the dealership qualify you. You need to figure out, can I really buy a car in what price range do I need to be? Considerations you need to make is how much driving you do. You know, if you're driving a couple thousand miles a week, then you're gonna want to look at a different car altogether than a guy that only drives, 10 miles a day or whatever. Because your costs to maintain and operate that car are going to be a lot higher the more you drive it. Take, for example, the truck I'm in right now, this F-150. I do drive a couple thousand miles a week in this F-150, but this is the vehicle I need. I can't, I could go and for some of my things that I do, I could drive some little rinky-dink Honda Civic or a Sentra or whatever, but the cost benefit on that deal just doesn't add up for me, because I have to haul trailers and I have to put stuff in the back. I have to pick up heavy parts, and I actually use this truck as a truck. 90% of the time, I'm using this exactly for its purposes. Then there's the 10% of the time that I'm just running back and forth. And, obviously, I don't take a lot of trips that don't require the truck, and I avoid that kind of thing, because I know this thing only gets, right now, summertime, I'm running the air conditioning. I can get between 11 to 13, but mind you, I haul a trailer quite a bit. So, that hurts my little average that I keep. But I get between 11 and 13, depending on where I'm going and how I'm driving. That's pretty horrible gas mileage. There's a lot of people that if they only got 13 miles to the gallon for their commute, they literally could not pay their bills. But this truck makes me money. So that's what you need. That's how I make that analysis. So you can apply that to yourself. If you're a waitress and you're driving back and forth 30 miles a day, and you just need a car to get you back and forth to work and run to the store, go shopping and stuff, you absolutely do not need an SUV of any kind. I don't care where you live, you don't need it. There's not a situation that you need that vehicle. Sorry. I know you want it, but it's not what you need. So unless you are making the money to offset that cost, you need to buy a cheap, fuel-efficient vehicle. And, if you make enough money to afford to drive a Tahoe or a Suburban for fun, then go right on ahead and get it. But, a lot of you guys out there, if you couldn't buy that car, cash, and, an older version of that car cash, then you probably don't need to buy a newer version of that car on payments. It just doesn't make sense. For one thing, I bought my truck cash. I have actually not in a very, very long time had a car on a payment. And I understand not everybody can do that, but you need to think about that. If your down payment isn't enough that you could go and buy like a 10-year or older version of what you're buying cash, then you probably just need to look for something else. if you're doing like me and you want to get into doing construction work, or you want to get into like owning your own business and you want a truck for that purpose, then that makes sense. If you own a lot of property, then you probably don't need me to tell you how to decide what car to buy if you're in that situation. But if you own a lot of property and you need to haul stuff around to maintain your property, then that makes sense. Once in a while you got something, but it's like once in a great while, but you want that ability, then you always buy like a little Ranger or an S10 or Colorado, depending on how new you want it to be and what your price range is. You always buy a little truck like that. No, it's never going to get the gas mileage that a small car will, but it will, an F-150 or a Silverado or whatever is probably overkill for your purposes. So yeah, you got to figure out what kind of car you're looking for and figure out what you can afford to buy. You also need to take a second to think about what is your credit. If your credit is not good enough to get a fair interest rate on whatever financing you acquire for the car, then you probably shouldn't get financing on the car. I mean, that's just the way it is. It's unfortunate. And yeah, it's nice to have nice things. And yeah, it's nice to know that you've got a nice, expensive car that, you can rely on. But the fact of the matter is everything breaks. I don't care if you got a 1982 Yugo or you got a 2012 Nissan or what it is. Every single car breaks at some point. Every single car requires maintenance, and yeah, some need more than others, and yeah, older ones are gonna probably need more stuff than newer ones. That's just the nature of the beast. But in general, I'll tell you right now, the truck I'm driving right now is a 2002, and adding up what it would cost me to maintain if I got a brand new 2018 truck, yeah, it wouldn't be anything because it's got a warranty. But let's say something that's outside of warranty. If I had to pay to maintain it out of my pocket, like let's say we got a 2012, that would be something that's probably outside of warranty. So I bought a 2012 F-150 instead of a 2002 F-150, something 10 years newer. Will it be more reliable? Sure, it would be, of course. But when something breaks, every part on a 2012 is going to cost me more money, period. There's no way around that fact. A newer car, the parts are more expensive than an older car. A newer car, it might be a little bit more difficult to work on it. Maybe not for me, but for you, if you're somebody that might want to consider working on it yourself, newer car, you're probably going to have paid to be worked on. For me, that won't happen. Work on brand new stuff, old stuff, I'm not worried about that, but the parts are something to consider. Then there's just the cost of the car. I don't think I will ever end up upside down on repairing this vehicle over what I would have to pay for something a lot newer. That's just the way it is. I also know what I'm looking at. I also know what what I'm trying to do. So I understand that too. Not everybody out there can make that assessment, but the fact of the matter is you gotta have money no matter what. If you think that you're gonna spend less money on a newer car than an older car, you're mistaken. You will always pay more for a substantially newer car, no matter how much your repairs add up to. I don't care what you have to repair on it. So you just need to sit down and think about, okay, I'm going to buy a car, and whatever my out-the-door price on that car is, I might as well just go ahead and assume double is the possibilities that I could run into. So if you got $1,200 to spend, my suggestion is to only spend 2/3 of that, so that way you have enough money to fix any possible issue. And then further down the line, you know, that'll at least get it so you can drive it down the road when you buy it. You know, you can buy it, fix whatever problem you need to fix that comes up right away, because that's going to happen with that extra third that you had over what you paid for the car. And then you move on, and later on down the line, if other stuff comes up, you deal with it at that time with the money that you have. If you bought something on a payment and you have no warranty on it, assuming you have no warranty on it, assume 1/3 over, you know, 1/3 of your down payment money needs to be set aside for possible repairs, because that's gonna come out of your pocket without a warranty. So those are the things to consider. So going on from there, once you start looking for cars, you need to understand what your budget is, and then use that to decide where you're going to buy the car. If you've got a budget of about $2,000 to either buy a car or put down a down payment, my strong urge to you is to go ahead and hit Craigslist and hit various classifieds. Try to buy something for cash that you can go and just pick up and take home, and you don't have a payment. Because all that money that you would be putting into payments can be money that you save, or that you have for repairs or whatever. Rather than just taking your $2,000 and putting it as a down payment, then have to pay whatever $300 a month for your car, and then you also have the added cost of full coverage insurance. So that's my other thing to you. But if you got $2,000 to put down and you've got good income, and you want to go out and buy a car, figure out what you can be approved for your credit, and go from there. So you figure out what kind of dealership you want to go to. You might have to go to a buy here, pay here dealer to get credit. I would probably say if you're at that point, you might as well just take your money and go buy something outright and not even have to deal with that hassle. But I understand some people aren't in that position. If you only got $500 to spend, you got to go out and buy a car. I'd say you're in a bad position, man. Yeah, you might as well go buy it from a buy here, pay here dealer, because it's not going to get any worse than the situation you're currently in. As sad as that is to think about. So you go to that point. If you're buying from a dealer, if you end up buying from a dealer, I would generally suggest, if you can't do like a good look over the car really good yourself, generally you can get a pre-purchase inspection done from a third party. Different places are going to charge different money for that, but it could save you a lot more than what you spend. I will tell you that over at my shop, if you're in Virginia and you're looking at buying a car from a not entirely reputable, super reputable car dealer, or even from a reputable car dealer, but you just want some added assurance, I will do pre-purchase inspections for $20. That is super cheap. Most pre-purchase inspections are like $40 to $60, and then depending on the car, I will only charge you $20, just in the hopes that I could have you as a future customer. And I will devote a half hour to jack up the car, take the wheels off, check the brakes, look underneath it, look for any obvious issues with it, and that will help you. You'll have to get them to let you bring the car to my shop. If you want me to go, like me personally, if you want me to go to a dealership, most cases I will. If it's not too far away and it's around my schedule, I'll stop in and take a look at it for probably a similar cost. If I have to go out of my way for it, then it will obviously cost a lot more, way out into wherever to look at this thing for you. So but in whatever shop you want to do that with, different shops, bigger shops are going to charge you a lot more because they just don't have time to deal with that. But don't ask me to look at like your exotic purchase, please. I've had people ask me to look at stuff that is just like crazy. I mean, I had one guy that was a dreamer trying to look at some I want to say it was a late 60s Nova or something like that. Not that that's a super exotic car, they're easy enough to work on, but we're talking about something that like I'm just not willing to do that like that. Not for that kind of money. I mean, unless you're seriously like thinking about buying it and having me work on it, you know, we're talking about like a restoration project. You want me to tell him how much it's gonna cost? I'm like, dude, I can't tell you that, man. We're talking about regular cars here, okay? So yeah, so anyway, you can always do that with any shop. Have them do a pre-purchase inspection. A lot of times I find that people go and they try to get their friend that knows a lot about cars to look it over for them, and that's like a surefire way to get screwed, man. I mean, I know your boyfriend or your dad or your buddy or whoever might know something about cars, but we're talking about stuff with computer diagnostic systems in them, and you know, you can't just go and bring Joe Blow that can put brake pads on to look over a car at a dealership for you and hope that that's enough. It's not. I'm going to tell you right now, it's not. If your friend or your dad is actually like a mechanic, like works in a shop, then that's a different situation. But you know, when we're talking about just somebody that works in their driveway, you can't do that and expect that to work out. So I'm going to go ahead and end the stream here. I'm going to pick up with a part 3 going on to talk about the specifics of warranties and finance, like how to decide what kind of financing and warranties to take on. But if you like this video, subscribe for more, and I'll catch you in the next one.